Jeremy Boring has stepped down from the company. I don't like the Daily Wire. I have history with the Daily Wire, and I have soured on the Daily Wire significantly in the last 2 years. They presented themselves as something that they absolutely were not. And whether that's Jeremy Boring or not, I mean, Ben Shapiro is still there. I think Ben Shapiro is just as bad. But Ian Carroll actually uploaded a very interesting video talking about this whole thing. And there's a lot more to this. Now, recently, Candace Owens and Brett Cooper have stepped away from the company. Candace is okay. And Brett Cooper, I think, Brett Cooper was arguably one of, if not the biggest stars at the Daily Wire. She was huge. I never watched Brett Cooper. I felt like it was really, really like overly produced bullshit. And it wasn't anything I was interested in at all. But it is what it is. She was a massive success, and that's all that really mattered. She has continued on, and she is I think she's even bigger now than she was when she was at the Daily Wire. So losing Candace Owens, losing Brett Cooper, really, really bad situation for the Daily Wire. And at the center of this is a guy that called himself the God King of the Daily Wire. That is what Jeremy Boring called himself, the God King of the Daily Wire. He's always come off as an arrogant douchebag to me. I've never spoken with Jeremy Boring directly. Like I said, I have history with the Daily Wire. We went to they invited us to the Terror on the Prairie premiere with Gina Carano. We were at the after party. That's where I met Benny Johnson for the first time. And the first time I ever met Benny Johnson, all I did was walked up to Benny and told him I had a problem with him, because I did at the time, and we had to hash it out. Like, I found out, I was like, oh, Benny Johnson's here. I need to find that guy because I got something to say to him. And I expressed my displeasure with Benny Johnson. He was cool. He handled it like a champ, and we've been friends ever since. And Benny's been a great friend. Benny is an awesome guy. You're never going to hear me saying anything bad about Benny. He's been a great friend. So I have a little bit of like rapport with the Daily Wire. With that said, Jeremy Boring, I'm not the biggest fan, and I'm certainly not a fan of Ben Shapiro. Let's hear what Ian Carroll has to say right here.
The Daily Wire is going bankrupt, allegedly, and Jeremy Boring is officially out as CEO. That's right. The self-proclaimed God King of the Daily Wire is at the heart of so many scandals. And yes, he is self-described as the God King. And the email just went out today internally that he is stepping down, and now Axios is covering the story. It has not yet broken, as far as I'm aware, that private equity is moving in and looking to buy up the Daily Wire. I heard, rumor mill, that Silver Lake Capital is looking to buy them up. And Silver Lake, you guys might want to watch this video before you think too hard about it, because there's a lot that is not in the public square right now. We're about to get into stuff like canceled credit cards, lying to the press, trying to trick Tim Pool. As far as I can tell from my sources, even people inside of the Daily Wire only know part of the story, and they're all kind of getting played against each other. It's a whole mess. And the most
Con Inc. is a disaster, by the way. And the Daily Wire represents that. Con Inc. is no different than the mainstream media. And this is why I don't want to be involved in any of that shit. I know that I have a decent sized political channel here and I cover some politics. I want nothing to do with Con Inc. For any of my issues with Steven Crowder it looks like was 100% right about the Daily Wire. I want nothing to do with these clowns. I really don't. They are the same as the mainstream media, just in a different way.
Important part of this mess is that the Daily Wire has a long history of treating their employees like shit. And so I've had numerous sources inside the Daily Wire for quite some time because everyone hates them, even their own people. That's not to mention the numerous sources outside of the Daily Wire that did not take the NDA money on the way out. Like, I had people literally in my comments on Instagram offering to give me dirt on the Daily Wire because they hated the Daily Wire so much. It's out of control. And it all centers around the God King and his fucking massive ego. and his lifelong desire to be a famous actor and make it in Hollywood, which he failed at originally years and years and years ago. And so once the Daily Wire was off the ground, he just couldn't help but try to turn the Daily Wire into a Hollywood movie studio and produce the Pendragon series. Note that this article is from 2023. And he said that he had dreamt of bringing this book to the screen for 25 years. It was due to stream exclusively on Daily Wire Plus in 2024. Why didn't that happen? That's a good question. And that leads to us talking about all the Daily Wire's employees' credit cards getting frozen, allegedly. Just to first set the stage, though, producing a Hollywood movie is like a huge multi-million dollar undertaking. It is not the same as filming Ben Shapiro talking really fast at liberals. So I've actually been collecting information on this story for quite some time here. And now that it has officially broken in the news, I think my sources are a little safer to talk about this. Because they're portraying it as though Jeremy Boring is willingly stepping back to work on creative projects like the Pendragon cycle, and that he'll remain with the company in an advisory role. My sources are telling me that the Pendragon cycle is being moved off-site and out of the Daily Wire.
Well, you remember that? So Brett Cooper had the Snow White movie, I guess, and I guess did they just take the L on that? Is that what happened? Because yeah, I forgot about that. Holy crap. So you got this Pendragon thing. And wasn't she supposed to be in the Pendragon thing as well? Pendragon, wasn't she in that too? Am I right about that?
Physical purview, because they're not letting Jeremy Boring back in the building right now, apparently. Jeremy Boring was 100% allegedly forced out, not a willing leave. And that's because this financial problem has been going on for years. They had recently had to table all projects and do a hiring freeze because there was no money in the bank. Allegedly. All the way back in 2023, Jeremy and Ben Shapiro apparently had to put money into the Daily Wire, their own personal money, to rescue it. That money has not been reimbursed, and it is all gone. The Pendragon cycle.
Count how many times he says allegedly. He says it like 100 times in this video.
Was over budget by like $50 million or something, allegedly. And at the end of 2024, this problem got so bad that Jeremy Boring apparently started lying to the press to try to drum up interest for a sale. This is when conveniently it leaked that Fox News was considering buying the Daily Wire. That was never in the works. That was just to try to drum up interest so that hopefully someone else would rescue their asses. I've heard that the Murdochs actually personally hate Jeremy Boring, allegedly, just like pretty much everyone else. Like even Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, it sounds like there's a huge rift between them from what I'm hearing. There's even rumors that I can't confirm quite yet that Ben Shapiro hired his own PR person like months ago. Brett Cooper was basically like their last profitable endeavor right now. I assume they make a little bit off Matt Walsh, but I'm not quite sure and I can't confirm. Their election coverage during the 2020.
I think that Matt Walsh at this point, I'm not sure Matt Walsh would have been a big, huge personality without the Daily Wire giving him a platform. But now that Matt Walsh is established, I think Matt Walsh could be bigger without the Daily Wire. And I say that as a person that's not a fan of Matt Walsh, by the way. But I think that if he moved on, he would be bigger without the Daily Wire now if he moved on.
2024 election absolutely bombed. Sounds like just like most Daily Wire products, they dropped a shitload of money into production and did not nearly recoup the costs. So then you remember when Tim Pool was like kind of like rearranging his business and all sorts of weird stuff was happening there? I don't even know if Tim knows this yet directly, but it sounds like the Daily Wire was trying to manipulate him into buying the Daily Wire and trying to present it as super profitable. The rumors I'm hearing is that Jeremy Boring thought Tim Pool would be dumb enough to fall for it, and he was the exact kind of guy they could sell to. I heard that they allegedly offered him an all-stock deal, which would be worth fucking shit because their stock is fucking worthless because they're bankrupt, allegedly. So props Tim for not taking that deal. That would have been a huge mistake. Because now my sources told me like a month or two ago.
I don't know if I'd believe that though. I don't know if I believe that they wanted to. That would Tim wouldn't have the money to buy the Daily Wire. There, I can't even process that. The Daily Wire is bigger than Timcast. There's no way that's possible. Because I've seen like with the Daily Wire and their memberships and all of that, I don't buy that at all. Tim said as much. Oh, there you go then. Okay, so there we go.
That the Daily Wire froze all the credit cards of all the Daily Wire producers. And they were like pretending it was a new accounting system trying to cover up what was going on, allegedly. But it sounds like apparently the Jeremy Boring's entire net worth is
By the way, with Ian Carroll, I mean, I've been paying attention to Ian Carroll for a few months now. I think he's got a lot of good points for sure. I don't know how much of this stuff is true, but I think that there's a lot of smoke for sure. And I think the Daily Wire has a lot of shady bullshit going on. That Tim Pool story is way out there. I personally don't see how there's any chance that Tim Pool would be able to even afford the Daily Wire.
Smoke screen, and that he's trying to renegotiate contracts with people like the Petersons to try to leech as much money out as he can to just keep the books looking balanced. It sounds like Jordan Peterson, Michaela Peterson, their whole team has been really weirded out by this and is not stoked. I haven't talked to them directly, but it doesn't sound like they like him at all. So anyways, rumor is that Silver Lake is one of the primary private equity firms.
Well, the thing too is there's something going on for Jeremy Boring to step down. Absolutely. Let's look at there's usually when you have a major CEO stepping down at the height of the company or at a key point in the company, there's usually a scandal going on or there's health problems. So if we remember when Mama Susan from YouTube, the YouTube CEO, remember when she stepped down a few years ago and it was out of nowhere? And then she just went away. And then sadly, and it is sad, she died. She had cancer. She was struggling with cancer and she died. The reason she stepped down was because of a health crisis. Most of the time when this happens, it's because of a scandal or it's because of a health situation.
Coming in looking to buy them up. And Ken, Mike, Egon, Greg, Joe, you might want to do a little more due diligence about the books before you make that purchase. Looks like your last investment, according to Wikipedia, was in 2022. This would not be a good way to come back onto the scene. That is just my opinion based upon what I'm hearing from the inside. Based on the chatter on the, shall we say, wire, it sounds like there's no money in the bank, so to speak, and they're not making profits. There's a difference between revenue and profits, and Jeremy has been doing a lot of finagling.
See, I don't know if I believe that. I mean, the Daily Wire, does someone know off the top of your head how many memberships that they claimed that they had like a year ago? It was a lot. And it's out there. I don't know how much it was, but I remember they had an ungodly amount of memberships on their website. It was insane. 100,000. Oh, it was more than 100,000. It was more than 100,000. It was in the millions, I believe. 1 million paying memberships. Now, you have to believe that that's how you build so just so everybody understands, that's how you build value. That is the true value of an independent company right there. That's why Geeks and Gamers isn't as valuable as it should be. We should have all of our paying members on our website, but it's really expensive to build the infrastructure in order to get to that place. We've tried it a few times, and that's why we work through locals and things like that, because it's really expensive. But this is why Tim Pool is a multimillionaire, because he has the paid membership on his website, and that puts the value of his company so astronomically high. Same with the Daily Wire, having paid memberships on your website. That's why Mug Club was such a big deal for Steven Crowder. Having that puts so much value in your company. And that's why we don't have the value. That's why I'm grifting for YouTube super chats right now. So anyway, continuing on.
Over the years to try to make it look really good. And realistically, do we even want the Daily Wire to be saved? Like opinion time? Don't we want to see Matt Walsh break out of the Daily Wire and do his own thing? And Matt, don't you think you'll do way better on your own than with the Daily Wire?
But he needed the Daily. Does anybody think Matt fucking Walsh, with no foundation from the Daily Wire, would just start a YouTube channel with his dry sense of humor? No. Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Brett Cooper, all of these big personalities, they grew not because they caught fire in the algorithm. It's because the Daily Wire dumped so much money into ads on social media sites and pushed them out there. So you weren't seeing an organic reach from any of these personalities at first. You just saw them so much that they just became part of your daily routine because they were shoved in your face because of all of the ads that the Daily Wire was pumping. That's it right there.
At this point, like even Jordan Peterson, who a lot of people's perspectives have changed on over time lately, like even he would get a fresh start if he just got away from this shit mess. This is like enigmatic of the times we're in, where even the alternative media has been bought out by big money and played in the same big studio mindset that is just completely contrary to what the new media revolution is all about. The way Jeremy Boring thought he could just replace Brett Cooper with her producer and act like nothing had ever changed and the same audience would stay there, that is enigmatic of this old way of thinking.
I agree. I agree completely right there. That right there is a fundamental misunderstanding of how YouTube works. It just is. It doesn't work that way. When an individual has built an audience on a channel into the millions, you can't just replace that person with another person and you think that audience is going to stay there. You can't do it. It's not how independent media works. It's not how YouTube works. That is not how it works. And the fact that they thought that they could do that was such a slap in the face to their audience. And it showed that Jeremy Boring does not understand what he's doing on this platform at all.
That the peasants just want to be entertained and you just put programming on their TV and they're guaranteed to watch it. That is not how it works. People subscribe to stories, they subscribe to people, they subscribe to authenticity, and the Daily Wire is the embodiment of an inauthentic, bad storyline that treats all of its people horribly. And I normally try to avoid breaking stories, but it is literally a colander over there. And there are so many leaks pouring information out of the Daily Wire that I cannot keep this shit out of my inbox if I try. And speaking of inboxes, rumor has it that when the Daily Wire took Brett Cooper's TikTok account, a month or so ago, the rumor is that they were trying to read her DMs because they thought that she had leaked the Brett Cooper story to me directly, despite I had never talked to Brett Cooper at all in my life at that point. That shit made me giggle because that shows just how disconnected Jeremy and his people are from reality. Like, bro, if you treat everyone in your company like absolute trash, they're not going to respect you and they're not going to protect you. And when you wrong them over and over and over again, it's inevitably going to wind up on the internet. So let this be a lesson to all of us. The internet is a force that ultimately skews towards authenticity, towards honesty, and towards open discussion. And if your business is modeled on this old way of controlling information, of big money payments, of treating people like property, and of just shitting all over your audience, allegedly, you're not going to last.
He had to add the last allegedly. I'm like 50-50 on Ian Carroll, but that's really interesting information. And I guess I'm 50-50 on believing half of maybe what he said is true and other half of it's complete bullshit in that video. But it is interesting. But the source of all of this is that Jeremy Boring stepping down from the Daily Wire as the Daily Wire CEO is a big problem. And there has to be something more going on than just him being like, I need to find myself or some bullshit like that. This guy's ego is out of control. And guys like that with an ego like that, they don't just step down in good faith out of a power position where they control everything. That doesn't happen. So something's up with it. We shall see.